Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to today's webinar featuring a new cloud-based property management tool, the Accordant Web Portal Property Management Edition. Our subject matter experts and creators of this new portal are Wes Adams, Paul Mink, and Keith Andrews from Accordant Company. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone is muted for a clean listening experience. So if you have questions, please type them into the questions box and we will address them throughout the session. This webinar will be recorded and we will email out a copy to everyone later on today. I will now turn it over to you, Wes.
Thank you, Krista. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Just an introduction, I have been a Sage 300 consultant for about 22 years, dealing mostly on the construction side. We've built through Accordant a web portal product for the construction side. We have about 60 clients using that, and so this is a new tool, new product that we're releasing today that extends the property management functionality into onto the web, onto the cloud. So what it'll allow you to do is for property managers to manage any vacancies, reporting outside of the system that you don't have to log into Sage. It also provides a way for tenants to log in and pay the rent electronically. So let me get started. I'm going to log in as a demo user. And just as the main screen that you'll see when you first log in is your dashboard. We can customize these dashboards, but typically they're for if you're a property manager, you see some balances by tenant. If you are in accounting, you will see open AR by property, open balance by property for accounts payable, as well as top 15 vendors. And just some general information we can add to this functionality as we add to the dashboards as we need. But just a quick glimpse of what information may be back there in the back office. So we're gonna have a couple of presenters. I'm gonna start with the info center, and then I'm gonna pass this over to Paul to deal with the property center. So info center is similar to any reports and or charts you may see in the back office, but a way for you to get at data quickly without having to log in. So I can obviously see the same information that you may see in Sage, as well as on the dashboard. AP by property, AP by vendor. So these are charts, obviously, and then you have your grid module down here where we can search, we can filter, so we can search for, say, monuments. So it'll search for anything in this in the grid. We can sort by clicking on a column heading, and then we have reports that we can run. So an AP aging report by company, for example. The portal comes with a Crystal Report viewer. So these are Crystal reports that have been customized, and then we can customize as well. But these are, open AP sample by company or by property. I'm not going to click on all of these in the sake of time, but you can also run an AP aging by vendor. In the AR side, we'll be able to see charts for open AR by property. Same functionality with being able to search for anything in this grid, search something. We can also add filters, sort by this. And then we have an AR aging report that I won't click on either, but well, I can click on it. Just a quick AR aging by property, multiple pages. Just quick way to get at information. And then finally in the info center, we have financials where we can run financial packages. Now I'm using sample data, so this is really old data back in 15. For this period in, I want to run all these reports. I'll click submit. And then I can run a financial statement package, which basically these packages run all these reports, combine them into one, may add a table of contents or perhaps a cover sheet, and then renders them as a PDF. So you get 24 pages in this package. There's about 8 reports in here. So you get a you know, a financial statement across your each month, 12-month financial, account balances, account register, reconciliation summary if you have reconciled your bank, cash disbursements, AP, general ledger, transactions. That's a big one. Wow, that is a big one. Income statement again, but just based on not 12 months, just for the month. And then with budget comparison. So that's a quick introduction to your info center. And I'm going to pass this over to Paul Mink to go through the property center. So Paul, I'm going to see if I can give you,
Good morning, folks. Thanks, Chet. Thank you, Wes. Like Wes, my name is Paul Mink. I've been working with the Sage property management product since the mid-90s, and this web portal evolved out of investigations with different clients and requests from clients having access to their data from the web. So with that said, I'm just going to jump into what we call the property center. And so essentially what the property center is a summarization of all the activity on the property. So, and the associated leases with that property and the units and so on and so forth. So with that said, just like Wes was showing you before, on the top here, you'll notice that we have strictly an occupancy status by property, just kind of showing you the number of units and what's occupied, what's available, so on and so forth here for each property. Then within this grid, you'll see each one of the properties on the bottom here. And one of the nice things about this is we've determined some of the key reports that people like to look at as a property manager. So like maybe a lease deposit report, we can pull this up and you can see this, and this breaks it down by property. And if you're a property manager and you only have responsibility for certain properties, you only see your properties that you're responsible for. Again, we're using demo data, so this is kind of wide open right now. Property occupancy. Same sort of concept here, just a kind of generic report. It shows the occupancy, right? Again, property specific security applies, and then property vacancy. Okay, and then just like, I won't do this, but just like Wes was showing before, we could generate the report package just like you did with the financials, right, by using this feature right here. And then at the bottom here, what you'll notice is that we have a listing of all the properties. So these are in our demo database. But what I am going to do is I'm going to show you this little feature here. It says switch to listing. I'm going to click on this. And it says, it puts this into like a tile format. And we did that specifically so that if you're out in the field and you're using your phone or you're using a tablet, you could quickly, say you're on a tablet scenario, right? I can just pull this up like this and then drill in to my different entities, right from here, and they still have the same icons available, but now it's in sort of a different mode, a tile mode. So I'm going to go back to my standard mode. I just wanted to show you this so you understand that you do have scalability with this based upon the device. It's device agnostic. So I'm going to go back to my grid form, and then what I'm going to do is we also have some search features here, right? So you could see I've done prior demos with this, but if I come here and I want to look up, Pacific or just PAC, I could go right click on, you have closest match typing here. So, which is a great feature that I know that's a big request from a lot of our clients. They want to be able to look up information real quickly just by typing maybe a tenant name or a property name or lease ID or something along those lines. So what we've done here is we've given that ability through the search feature. So now that I'm in the PAC 1000, right, I could look at the information pertaining to PAC 1000, which is a Pacific building. We show you the property type, who the manager is, time, the last rent roll date. Again, we're using old demo data, so this is going back to 2015. The number of units, how many occupied and leased, and then service requests. I'll show you that in a little bit. I'll explain that a little bit, how that works. And then if we come here, this will bring me into the home page of that property. But prior to going to that, I'm going to click on this little button here. And this will be the details, basic legal details pertaining to property. So that's in the properties detail on the properties page of the unit itself and property management. That's where it's reading this information, like some of the description. If I come here, we'll print this off for you so you can see what this is. This is the rent roll. All right, so here's a generic rent roll. And this is just a generic rent roll for the property. So we could print this out, and this will have some key information on there. All right, I'm going to close that. And then this here, if I come here, I can look at a lease expiration report. Maybe want to forward this to one of your leasing managers, or maybe the property manager deals with the leasing if it's residential, whatever the case may be. So we could have a massive lease expiration report for this property. Again, this is property specific, right? Because I'm in the property itself, because we're on the property homepage. So I'm looking at the specific building. So now if I click on this right here, this is going to bring me to the home page for that property. And what you'll notice as soon as I click on this is that a whole, the screen changes and you'll see tabs at the top, right? So within these tabs, I'm just going to go to the general tab for a minute. Basically what this is looking at is a general property page that is in the property management system and giving you more information about this property. So this is the information we were looking at that we saw before in the legal description. But now you can see the manager, number of units, occupied units, so on and so forth. I'm going to click on the units tab, and now I can see the individual units, right? So here are all my units within that building. Now in this building, we happen to have everything occupied, but if there wasn't, if this was like a partial occupied property, I would have vacant here for vacant units. So, you know, pretty simple. The unit, the office, the class of the unit. So if it's retail, it'd be retail, you know, mixed use, whatever the case may be. Who the current tenant is, the name of the tenant. This is the street address of that unit that they're in. So the physical location, the floor of the building, if there is one. And then the market rent for that building. So like the last current rent or the market rent, and any bedrooms or bathrooms if it's residential, right? And then what other feature we have in here, the details. If you look at this, we can see the details here pertaining to the unit. So again, this is just coming from the property management system. So whatever is articulated in that unit will be in this little screen here. I'm going to click on this again to minimize it. And then this is going to be a listing of any attachments like pictures for that unit. So if I bring this up, we can scan pictures. You could attach PDFs. You could attach move in, move out forms, and you know maybe on a lease you'll see that. So in this case, we're just attaching pictures of that unit. And we could go through this and see what's in there. Okay. Now I'm going to go up to the top here, and then I'm going to go to my leases. So if I go to my lease tab, similar sort of information, but specific to the lease, right? So now I have the lease ID, what the unit is, if there's a revision number on the lease, if there's amendments to the lease, whatever, you might have revisions to that lease, the name of the tenant, the status, if they're current, terminated, whatever the case may be. Most of the time, you're just going to see current here. The balance that's currently due for that lease, right? The last payment amount, the last payment date, so on and so forth, right? Actual start date and the original lease end. Obviously, if this is a current, we're just going to give you the anticipated lease end date, right? If I click on this, consistent with what we saw in the other tabs, this is just going to give me all of the detailed information pertaining to that lease right from here. And if you notice on the bottom is lease notes, right? And if there's file links, we'll have a link. It'll show you the link to it. You won't necessarily be able to click on this yet. It's not a hyperlink, but it would show you where it's at. Okay. I'm going to close this. I'm going to come here, and then here's a lease abstract. So this is just a crystal report. Essentially what this is just a lease abstract about that lease. So if you need like a 1 or 2 page document just to give you all the information about that lease, it's all here, like the scheduled charge dates and so on and so forth. It's all right here, basic information, right? Right of first refusal, renewal options is, basic information that's coming from the lease notes right here, so on and so forth. Deposits, late charges, that type of stuff. Okay, close this. And then if I come here, I could get an open item report. So this is kind of neat because we could actually have this here. This is like an open item statement. If you wanted right from here, you could save this, or actually when we get into the next section, Keith is going to show you how you can send this directly to a tenant in the tenant management area. So I'll leave that for him. But this is an open item statement for that tenant. You can print it right from here, then fire it off right from here to your tenant. And then this here, if I click on this, I could actually record collection notes. So maybe I'm on the phone with the tenant, right? And they're disputing this late charge. I could come in here and I could put a collection note, tenant disputing, late charge, disputing charge. So now I have that, now I have that memorialized in this. I could save this, and now that is part of my collection notes for this late charge, right? So now I have that sitting in there. So if I come back to this, say a week from now, I come back in here, I could open this up and I could say, what happened with that late charge? How come they didn't pay it? I'll see my collection notes pertaining to that, okay? If I go to my tenants here, I could actually come in here. So if I'm on Banco Bank, right? One of the cool things about this, I'm gonna leave some of this for Keith, but in here, I could see some of the tenant information. If you notice, it's blacked out, and the reason why it is this is actually located in the Tenant Center. So this is just like a home page for them. So Keith will cover that. But what I can do is I can rate my tenants. So in here, if I click on this, I could put a star mechanism to this, right? If you notice, I could like 4.5 stars, and I could put a note on this. So now, similar to what we were doing with the collection notes, I have a way to rank my tenants. So that's good, because if you're trying to maybe renew the lease with these guys or whatever the case may be, like someone like this, it's 1.5 stars, maybe they're a problem tenant, they don't pay, whatever the case may be, you may not want to renew the lease. So just some information like that. And then this here is strictly a tenant ledger. So this is all the history related to that tenant ledger. So you can see everything here. All that history is available to you. Okay. A couple other small items here. So we have the ability to track service requests on the property. So Keith is going to get into this again, like a tenant can issue a service request for the property. This is generic to the property, so I could do a service request right from here. And what I could do is maybe someone called in, or maybe it's just a property issue, and I could come in here and say other, need to fix sidewalk lift, something like that, right? And then I could come in here and put a status of this, it's brand new. I could submit and save that. And then what that does is that keeps this in here, right? And then I could track these service requests and dispatch. If I have some of the dispatch tool like service management or SSO or something like that, I could have a mechanism to track this and know what's going on with this issue. And again, this is available in the tenant as well, and Keith will get into that. And then here's something that's really useful. Not that this isn't, but this kind of is something that came out of requests from a lot of our clients. They want to have a quick way to make announcements to the building tenants. So as an example here, parking lot be closed for snow removal, things like this. So I could come in here on this building, and I could select this to specific tenants. I could select all. I could just go like this. I'll just say everything. Actually, I'll clear all, just do Banco, since that's what I'm working with right now. And I'll come in here, subject line, new door locks, right? Put a subject line in that, please be advised, please be advised. Oops. New door keys are necessary. something to that effect, right? And I could click send. And you can notice there's an effective date and expiration date. So I can make this through Saturday, and then boom, right? So now that tenant just got an announcement based upon an email associated with that tenant, okay? So that's, you can see all those here, right? So that's a listing. And then the other thing we could do is if you wanted, we talked about document and image files. So here are the image files for that specific unit I was looking at before. So I could actually come in here and associate files to units or leases or just to buildings, right? So if you notice on this, I have a file associated with this. It's a rental move in, move out checklist, right? So maybe there's something else that you want to add to this system. And these, by the way, can be developed as forms in our system. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add a file. So I'm just going to call this a document, right? And I'm just going to associate this with a specific unit. Just put it to 1,000, and then I'll add a file. And I'm just going to come here, and I'll submit this, right? So now if I come down here, I can see the file. It opened it up. So there it is, potential property management training tips or topics. So I have that memorialized in the system as well, okay? So at this point, I think I have covered everything that I have on my agenda. So Krista, do we have any comments that need to be addressed?
Yes, we have one question here. The question is, would I have to build the database for this, or if I have existing reports outside of Sage, can Sage build the reports for me? It seems like it would take a fair amount of time to input all the data needed to start using this. With that said, I think we could really utilize this within our organization.
Okay, so the quick answer to that is this is a direct link back to the property management database. There's nothing you have to do in terms of data entry to reflect the units, the leases, so on and so forth, the tenant, the properties. It's reading live database. It is what we call near term. It's not real time. So there's a synchronization process that takes place based upon a synchronization schedule that you define. So it could be every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every hour, whatever you decide. And then to answer the other question, I think it was a two-part question, sounded like to me. The reports, or what you see, are what we call the canned reports that the system comes with. We've had requests from other clients, and we have had custom development done to expand on this and provide reporting. So if you do have some custom reports, I'll leave that to Wes because I'm not sure what we're doing with deployment schedule on that, but we can incorporate some custom reports into the portal for sure. I think I answered their question.
Yep, sounds good. That's all we have for now.
Okay. All right, great. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Keith. So Keith, I don't know, I guess you're going to make him.
That's fine.
Yep, got it.
I pass it over to Keith.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Paul and Wes. And like the other guys, my name is Keith Andrews, and I also have been a consultant for about 21 years. My initial certification was in the property management world, so it's quite applicable that they asked me to step in on this particular session today. So, talking about the Tenant Center, and actually to get to that, you just simply click on Tenant Center down from the Property Center or Info Center that Wes was showing you. And as soon as you get onto this page and onto this screen, you can see at a glance some useful information. We deliberately put at the top what would, for a lot of people, probably be the most important thing as to who owes you money and how much they owe, or who owes the most amount of money. The intention of this platform is for you to be able to analyze, do some maintenance to your tenants, a little more specifically, than accessing it through the property center. So at a glance, this is where we are as far as who owes me money. You can hover over any of these and you can see how much they owe. So that's really neat to be able to kind of get a feel for what each one of these bars represent. And maybe you need this information for a meeting. You can grab and go by simply downloading this to any one of the formats that you see here, right? Whichever is applicable to your particular world. Some of the things that we can access here are relatively similar to what you might be able to access through the property center. So there are some links and some reports that we can access here, some of which we can also access from other areas. But the search functionality is also similar to what Paul showed you. So any of the words that we see in here, we can just start typing, and of course it'll hone in on those two letters. So it's a real best fit search. And it could be not only the words, but it could also be amount. So I can search pretty much through any of the pieces of information here on this screen. And obviously, as you can see just from this red bar, this is probably the area where we can deal with actual cash exchange, right? So hopefully somewhere in here, we have the ability to receive payment. So I'm just going to show you how you, if you wanted to as the property manager, so think in terms of what you're seeing from the point of view of a person managing the tenant's information. And a one-click here would be able to send statements out to multiple tenants. So I could click on multiple tenants who owe me money, and a single click can immediately send them an email. They'll get it right away, straight to their inbox. If I wanted to do it to every single one of them, I could do that, or I could just do it to individuals. If, for example, I looked at the particular tenant's account, and after analyzing that particular tenant, I just want to do a one-touch and send that off to that tenant as a statement straight to their email, one click, and it tells me you sent that email. And actually, that just popped up. That's going to pop up in my email indicating that we just sent that out to them, and they will get it right away. From that screen, the tenant is able to click on and come right back into the portal and actually make their payments if applicable. Plus, of course, they get a nice detailed look at what's actually owed. Similar to what Paul was showing, I have the ability, as I'm looking at this large number, I could click here to the list of the items. And again, and here's that actual email indicating to me that I owe money. And if I wanted to, I could take a look at that. But if anyone wants to see it, I can show you what that email looks like. And so I have a list of the different charges, and I can do some analysis, discussion, and if I needed to, I can make a note. So I can make a note as to what this particular tenant owes, what the discussion was, whether they're challenging it. Maybe they're saying to me, hey, you know what, we really shouldn't have been charged this, and I can make a note of that and save it. And then we've got a permanent note indicating for whoever else is probably going to follow up as to what that discussion was. So notes for each one of my specific tenants, right? As you look here, you can see that I've got my tenants just sort of listed. I can sort by name, property, so I can group them by property if I wanted to. So I've got information I can send out. I've got sort capability. I've got one-touch communication, right? Now, what's really useful here is to see what the tenant sees. In other words, a tenant can come right into the portal and handle their outstanding charges, their outstanding bills, and sort of maintain their account. So if I click on this little home button, this is essentially what the tenant sees if they log into the portal. So right now, when a tenant logs in, this is what they land on. Not only is there some summary information here, there's a few other tabs that I'm going to talk about in just a second, but the tenant's able to come in and maintain their screen, maintain their information. They'll essentially see this without this menu bar. So it'll look more like this for them. All right, so this little hamburger sort of gives you a better feel for how they're going to view it when they come in. They can come in and update their contact information. So that's pretty neat. They can also set up a recurring payment. And here you get a detailed listing of what is outstanding, and that tenant at this point could make some decisions as to what they want to do. Maybe they don't agree to this and they just want to have a printout of it so that you can kind of look at it. So they can hit the print open item statement, and you'll see that same open item statement that Paul showed. Or maybe they want a little more detailed analysis as to what made up that outstanding balance. So clicking the tenant ledger, what's neat about this is they get a feel for the charges and the various payments. In this particular case, this one doesn't have any payments as are visible, but that's essentially what they could do. So they can sort of analyze it for themselves. Is this accurate? Do they want to challenge it? Things of that nature. Again, with regards to this particular view, if I want to see this on a smart device, it would look something along, rather than the listing view, along the grid view type look, where it's going to be these individual fields. And I can actually do that on the previous screen also. So they can look at this on a smart device. It is scalable, as Paul had said. And of course, there's certain things that they can actually now continue to do. So a tenant could pick individual charges that they want to pay, and you'll notice that it's accumulating the charges. And if they wanted at that point, they could then make a payment by selecting, pay selected items here. So I could select all the items or deselect all the items. And if I picked one to pay and I changed my mind, I can hit cancel this payment and change my mind and stop. If a tenant decided maybe they wanted to pay the full amount, they agreed, yep, this is what I owe, let me go ahead and make a payment, they can do that from right here. So that's neat. They can come right into the portal, make their payment. Obviously, they can change their mind, go back, or go ahead and actually make their payment. So maybe they'll put in their credit card number. Let's just put in a fake credit card number. And I'll put in the 0122 and security code. And we'll just put my name, I guess. Right? And my zip. That's my zip code. And now I can make this payment. This actually will send an email directly to the property manager indicating that, hey, or whoever is the person that should be receiving that a payment was made. So they'll get an email indicating that that payment was made, and that person now has a record of the fact that that was paid. So a neat way for a tenant to do some maintenance, for the tenant to actually make a payment. So very important functionality for being able to relate and communicate with the tenant regarding money. If the tenant came in, maybe they're a commercial tenant and they have a huge lease and they're wondering, what was the CAM information? What was written in there for taxes? What was my late charge configuration? They can actually come in here and take a look at their lease information. And right here, this link would typically be their actual lease agreement. It could be 30, 40 pages, and it obviously, because it's a PDF, it's searchable. We just for now just threw in the lease abstract, simply because we didn't actually have a lease, but essentially this could be a 30-page lease, and obviously it is 100% searchable, so they can go ahead and find a particular piece of information. So that could be really useful. Not to mention, they misplaced the lease, they can download the lease right from here. So a nice maintenance area for a tenant, right? Plus, the tenant could come in here. Maybe for some reason there's an issue with a door or a window, and they can put in a service request and have that go straight to a particular property manager or whoever is the applicable person to receive that. So I can click on New Service Request, and similar to what Paul was showing you, I can have a bunch of problem codes. These are just boilerplate ones that we put into the system, but obviously this could be customized to suit your specific needs. For right now, if there was something that wasn't that wasn't appropriate to what you wanted in this list, you can just use the other. Or in this particular case, no heat, right? So, you know, maybe they'll just say, you know, please fix today, right? And of course, they can submit that. So a nice maintenance area, an area where they can communicate, an area where they can come in and track what's going on, how much do I owe, make a payment, do a little bit of maintenance to update, and comprehensively deal with their account, and even be able to hence communicate with you to the back office. So I think this tenant center could make for a really neat and easy way for a tenant to actually to make their payments, and it makes easy access for them to kind of maintain and look at their account, right? So less phone calls, less picking up the phone, where do we stand, how much do I owe, why do I owe it, a lot of ease on the back office. So that pretty much covers the tenant center. Hey, Krista, any questions in the chat regarding the tenant center?
Yes, we have
Okay.
a list of questions for you. First question is a user able to enter additional columns to reports, for example, the lease ID field, or replace a field, example, lease ID replacing property?
On which report? I don't know. Can they modify the report? We can.
Right, it just says 2 reports, so I'm assuming multiple reports. Any report.
Okay. So I'm wondering if they either mean reports or grid. I'm going to answer both questions. If they're asking with regards to a grid, maybe they want to add a particular column, replace a particular column. That's certainly something that the developer can entertain as a possible development project. If it's regarding a specific report, these are the canned reports that come with the portal. Any sort of custom reports, obviously, that would be something that would have to be analyzed and discussed as to what that would entail, whether it's something that's going to be very involved or otherwise. So certainly that can we modify reports? Sure. Can we modify grids? That's obviously a development potential. Sure.
Okay, great. Next question is, with respect to tenant emails, how do you differentiate different recipients for a tenant? For example, I may want to contact a tenant AP person for one issue, but a tenant site person for another issue.
Right. So we have multiple ways of doing that. We just elected to use, I'm assuming everyone here is familiar with the property management information. As you know, there are multiple address types that are on each one of the tenant records. So we can select from that address type and make a communications decision as to who that's going to go to. There are other things that we've entertained based on some other discussions with clients, including potential custom fields. But right out of the box, property management does offer multiple email address types. So it's all the way to the right of your address field on the actual tenant record. If you kind of go and look there, you can see that those address types are available, and those are customizable. So again, a development decision as to how we would want to make that decision-making process take place. But that you can certainly have multiple addresses, sure, for a tenant.
Okay, great. Next question is, are open item statements customizable? For example, can you add company logo?
Oh, the open item statement that comes with it, we certainly can. We can absolutely, yeah, we can absolutely add a logo to this. This is a crystal report, and it can have a logo at the top, push a lot of this information down. And if you don't really like the scissors, we can actually take that off of the screen. But yes, we can customize that. Obviously, that would be another development thought process. So again, I would have to turn that over to Wes for his analysis of what that would take. But it certainly could be updated with your logo.
Okay, next question is this module compatible or can it be designed to be compatible with state housing authorities requirements?
Well, we haven't actually looked at going that deep into state housing authority requirements. We certainly can analyze that, but is it modifiable? Just think in terms of the portal right now as to out of the box, this is what the portal is. The portal, however, the thought process is we will continue to enhance this. We'll continue to add functionality and expand this as we get input from clients. So if that's certainly a direction that a client needs to go, we could consider custom development. We could consider enhancing it to include certain additional functionality. But this portal, the intention is not necessarily for it to stay where it is now. The intention is for this to continue to grow. You know, and the developers, you know, they're pretty quick at getting information updated and added to it. So we could certainly look at that. Don't think in terms of this being a static product as it is. Growth is certainly a thought process that is on the forefront of our mind.
Okay, next question is, can tenant credit card payments be set up by different properties so payments go to different ownership entities? Also, are you able to collect any credit card fees?
The credit card payments and credit card fees, I think I'm going to defer that to Wes. So if we can go to the next question, and just before I turn it over to Wes, maybe to kind of expand a little bit on that and where he is with that.
Okay.
He can probably circle back on that. So if let's move to the next question, and then I guess Wes can probably expand a little bit on where we are.
Okay, so there's one more question, and then we'll turn over to Wes. The next question is, are all reports written in Crystal, and are they customizable by the user?
The reports are Crystal, and you know, it is sitting on a SQL platform. So the reports are Crystal. We really do want them to be Crystal. For one thing, they're quite aesthetic, obviously, as opposed to just the regular RD reports that come with property management with Sage 300. Can they be modified by the tenant? Again, the modification capability, I think I would want to turn that over to Wes, and I'll tell you why. A client could modify a Crystal report and have a communication with the development team as to could this report then be added as a modified report to the portal instead of the canned report. And again, that would really be a Wes answer. But whether or not it's modifiable to the degree of a tenant could look at what's there, add certain additional columns if they are Crystal, if they're skilled in Crystal report writing, sure. There's no real restriction as far as the information that is being pulled from Sage 300. Custom fields would probably have to be a custom consideration, but could it be modified in that respect? Again, back to the original statement of growth is definitely in the forefront of our mind. So we're not really locked in here. You know, we can certainly expand on that. And sure, I would say invariably we can modify a Crystal report or have a custom Crystal report instead of the one that's here for a particular client. We've done that in other areas too. So you know, don't think in terms of being locked in entirely with what's here. So think in terms of growth. I know for a lot of folks who are probably on the call, you know, when you think about the on-premise 300 platform, you know, there hasn't been a lot of enhancement that's gone into it over the years, and one may consider this to possibly be along the same lines. But this is the new platform. This is our new thought process, and expansion is definitely something, as we said, that we want to keep, you know, be forward thinking and the forefront of our minds. So, any other questions there, Chris?
What technology? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay. Okay. What technology requirements are needed to upgrade?
Web access. That's it.
Isn't that a beautiful thing?
That's a beautiful thing. If you have web access, then certainly, obviously, you would have to acquire the portal, and Wes can speak to that as to how that actually is deployed. But web access, that's basically it. So there's no additional machinery or equipment that you need to acquire in order to do that. So long as you have web access, you can get to the portal.
Great. One more just came in. Can you briefly discuss the process for providing tenant access to enroll in the web portal? These
are really some Wes questions. So Wes has a specific way of doing some onboarding for tenants. So I'll defer that one to Wes more, because he's really the technical expert on how some of the actual deployment of this would actually go.
Okay, it looks like we need to turn it back over to Wes to handle some of those questions.
I think we do. If you can, I guess if you want to just sort of reiterate some of them for him, just so he can be clear on the answers to that.
Yes, sounds good. Wes?
So Wes, I guess I'll turn this back over to you just to kind of...
Make him presenter in case he needs to show anything.
All right, I am unmuted. Let me show my screen again here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the last two little features, and it's a great segue actually from Keith, and then I'll answer some of the questions that came in. So the intent right now is for this to be multi-tenant, so one platform with the majority of the features that you see here, but also build a community to say this is the enhancements that we may want to do, right? So we have a ideas section and the support where you can have all the different property managers, maybe not so much for tenants, that could get a little unwieldy, but they can say, let's add a move in, move out checklist form. And as we have more and more users, so you may say, I need to be able to do this. Let's have this idea. Can we do this? And then all the users of property management, in-house users, can vote on this. They can comment on it and really have a collaboration of, let's build this thing, let's enhance this. And we can vote on, say, these are the things that are the most highest priority enhancements that we need to make. In addition to that, we use this as an issue tracker as well for support. So if you run into an issue, you can certainly just create a new issue that gets routed to me and my support team, and then we can resolve those. It's kind of like, I'm sure if you have outsourced IT, you're used to a ticketing system. So we have this built into the portal here. The questions that I can answer. So yes, you will have so for the property managers, so in this, we have a company settings page where the property management company can upload logos, and you would see those logos here. And also we could add it to the reports as well. Second question is on the company admin as well. You will have multiple settlement accounts. So we would set up a funding account. You'd have to have a separate merchant account. So let's say you have 5 properties. You need 3 different funding account or settlement account where when the tenant pays, the funds get directed into those. So we would assign those funding accounts, merchant IDs. We would pass that, assign those to the properties. So any tenants of that property, the funds would go directly into that account. In addition, the tenant onboarding. So right now we have the ability to, we'll do a tenant onboarding kind of together to get all the tenants in there at the same time. So we would either, there's a lot of different places where you can put email addresses in property management in Sage. So we would identify where that is. We would have an import of all those tenants. As we do the import, we would come up with, here's the welcome email that we would send to them with a random password. And then when they log in, they can set up their recurring payment. They can see their account. So it's a one-time shot. And then I think going forward, any new tenants that you may have coming in, you would just set up the email address and set up the user accounts in the portal. But we can do a one-time onboarding for those tenants. And then obviously you would maintain those, any leases that are expiring, and you want to, it would be up to you whether or not you want to disable their account for those tenants that, or the lessees that, no longer really need to have access. So we would have a, disable this account, or you could leave it open. They could always just go and look at the pretty screens that we've developed. Did I answer all the questions?
I believe so. You talked about credit card fees.
Oh, credit card fees. Yes. So right now,
Okay.
the test environment is for Stripe. So we're going to have the configuration go, and I'm finalizing the development for the different platforms, the payment platforms. So we'll have configuration on whether or not the property manager wants to pass the fees to the tenant, or they want to pay those fees. Fees right now would be about between $2 and $3 per ACH. Again, the property manager could cover those fees, or we could pass that to the tenant, where the tenant pays the fees, and 3% on credit cards. From what I understand, 95% of tenants would pay by ACH and set up their recurring payment that way. But it would be a part of the onboarding process for your property management companies is to determine how you want to do those fees.
Okay, we had a couple more questions.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, go ahead.
We manage over 50 different owner accounts. Is the portal able to handle that number of different bank accounts?
Absolutely. There's no limit.
Great. And the next question is, who is the vendor who will be processing the payments?
So yeah, so right now it works with Stripe. I don't think we're going to use Stripe simply because the fees are a little bit out of. So I have an integration with Authorize.net. I'm building an integration with a couple other ones. One is the VIP integrated payments. So several others that I'm finalizing right now. Expect that to be live by the end of this month. So a final determination has not been made. I'm looking more on the total fees that are not. Stripe is a bit expensive if I'm a tenant, and I may have to pay excessive amounts for even an ACH. So I'm not going that route. So to answer your question, is we probably have multiple options. If you have a vendor merchant relationship already in place, we may be able to accommodate that. Hopefully that isn't too vague.
Okay, that looks like all the questions we have for now. If you do have other questions, you can feel free to reach out after. You can reply to the recording webinar, and we'll send out our contact information. Is there anything else that you want to show?
I don't have anything else. Thank you for your time, everyone. Let us know.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Yep, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be following up with everybody later today. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.